we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now.
The reality is they have no vision, no policy. They have nothing to sell but hate.
Oh, you thought standards couldn't get lower? You thought our politics couldn't get more pathetic? You sweet, sweet summer child. We're going to break down the latest scandal catching up with an unhinged progressive politician, plus Fox News and Republican hypocrisy about a huge news development, and a journalist who actually thinks Canada would beat the US in a war, plus so much more, on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas from across our media, our politics, and the internet, all from an independent perspective. Up first, we gotta check in with Jasmine Crockett, who unfortunately, and I deeply unfortunately for the state of our country, seems to be something of a rising star in the Democratic Party. She's constantly getting invited on TV. People in Democratic politics keep praising her as if she's some kind of magnetic star. In reality, I just think she's crude and lowbrow and very harsh and not very nuanced. And that was on display with the comments she made insulting a Republican governor, Greg Abbott of Texas, who has been in a wheelchair for several decades since an accident, seeming to mock his disability at an event, ironically with the Human Rights Campaign, a left-wing LGBTQ activist group. Take a listen to this clip.
Because we in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot ass mess, honey. So yes.
It's hard to find something more nasty and more hypocritical than a woke progressive making fun of a Republican because he's in a wheelchair, which is what Jasmine Crockett just did there. And then the hyper woke audience at the Human Rights Campaign, again, a left-wing activist organization's event, cheering and laughing. Y'all, if they did not have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. Because I promise you, if a Republican said that about a Democrat, these same people would be, so offended about what horrible hate speech it is. And they would be raising the alarm about what a bigoted microaggression it was and all this stuff. Apparently, it's fine to mock people's disabilities when they disagree with you politically. That said, I, unlike many of these progressives, am not a snowflake. So I don't think it's the end of the world that she said something nasty about somebody across the aisle politically. I think it's not cool to make fun of people for their disabilities, especially when it's not like you're a comedian doing a comedy set or something. Then I really think anything goes. But when you're a politician who's supposed to be serious, just don't do that. But I don't think it's the end of the world. Unfortunately, in modern politics, people say nasty stuff all the time. Trump, Republicans do this too. It's just a thing. And I would have left it there if not for the details and the tea that came out about this woman and the absolute gaslighting she attempted on all of us. First, though, here's how Governor Abbott responded, which I honestly thought was classy. He took the high road.
It's another day and another disaster by the Democrats. The reality is they have no vision, no policy. They have nothing to sell but hate. And Americans are not buying it. It's one reason why Texas is going to remain red and why Republicans are going to continue to win elections across the country. Republican states like Texas are leading the way, and with comments like this by Democrats, we will just leave them in the dust in future elections.
Now, I'm going to show you the wild gaslighting that Jasmine Crockett has engaged in. No apology, but instead one of the most brazen lies I've ever seen, and we have the receipts that I will show you after this. You don't want to end up like these fat positivity influencers.
Just because I'm fat, that doesn't invalidate the things that I say.
She died.
You ready to get supersized?
She died too.
Today I've got the big Fruit Loop.
He's dead.
Join me on my Fat Positive radio show,
Which didn't last long because she died.
Maintaining a healthy weight, keeping your energy levels up, and feeling better in your body is so important. And that's why I'm happy to share today's sponsor, Lumen. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. and Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/Brad to get 20% off your Lumen. That is LUMEN.me/BRAD for 20% off your purchase. Thanks to Lumen for sponsoring this episode, and now back to today's show. So all Jasmine Crockett had to do in my book was apologize, say, hey, look, that's not cool. I apologize, Governor Abbott, and I'll keep it substantive next time. I won't go there. Instead, she decided to just lie and gaslight us with one of the most brazenly dishonest statements, one of the most galling statements I've seen in some time, which in our politics today is saying something. She wrote on Twitter, "I wasn't thinking about the governor's condition. I was thinking about the planes, trains, and automobiles he used to transfer migrants into communities led by black mayors, deliberately stroking tension and fear among the most vulnerable." So she's denying that what she said, calling the governor in a wheelchair, Governor Hot Wheels, had anything to do with his disability. She was referring to the fact that he transported migrants using buses and planes. Y'all, does that sound true? Does that sound remotely believable? Congresswoman Crockett continued, "Literally, the next line I said was that he was a hot-ass mess, referencing his terrible policies. At no point did I mention or allude to his condition. So, I'm even more appalled that the very people who unequivocally support Trump, a man known for racially insensitive nicknames and mocking those with disabilities, are now outraged. Keep that same energy for all people, not just your political adversaries. Finally, this is yet another distraction. Instead of obsessing over and hanging on to my every word, maybe my political foes should focus on doing the work of the people that elected us to improve their lives. I mean, maybe Congresswoman Crockett should focus on doing the work she was elected to improve people's lives rather than mocking people for their disabilities because they're on the other side of the aisle. Like, I am not buying this for a second that she wasn't referring to his disability. Look, I don't think she did verbal 9/11. I don't think what she said is the end of the world, but do not act as if we are stupid, as if the public are all just fools, and we're going to believe that you were referring to planes and buses used to transfer migrants. That's a lie, and honestly, it's such a bold lie and a blatant lie that I don't even think it's meant to be believed. I don't think she actually believes that anybody will really buy that. I think it's one of those lies that's just intended for one purpose, to give plausible deniability to her allies and her friends so they can tell themselves, oh, she didn't mean it like that, when in their heart of hearts they know that she did, but to keep promoting her and boosting her, they need to kind of just square away that inconsistency in their brain. I think that's the purpose of this lie, but it demonstrates a woman who just has no respect for the American people. If you're going to look us in the eye and then actually expect us to believe that, girl, no, we're not buying what you're selling. And we have receipts that utterly debunk her exact narrative. You know how she's saying, oh, I called him Hot Wheels because he used buses and cars to move migrants. Yep, nope. She actually liked a post in 2021, before all that happened, mocking Governor Hot Wheels Abbott because of his wheelchair use. As the Washington Free Beacon's Peter Hassan reports, Representative Jasmine Crockett liked Facebook comments referring to wheelchair-bound Texas Governor Greg Abbott as Hot Wheels in 2021, a year before he started busing migrants to Democratic cities, the policy Crockett said she was referring to when she called Abbott Hot Wheels herself. And guys, it wasn't just one comment, it was 3 different comments she reacted to or liked on Facebook that all referred to him as Governor Hot Wheels. So we knew it was a lie, but now we have the proof. We have the receipts. So for me, the level of dishonesty and the brazen denials and just gaslighting, and I know I overuse that word, guys, so feel free to run to the comments and drag me for it. I know I'm guilty of it, but this actually feels like a case where it's appropriate. Like, she did something so obvious and is then telling us that what we saw with our own eyes isn't real, even though there's receipts contradicting her fake made-up excuse. If that's not gaslighting, I don't know what is, but I do know I overused that, so I apologize for that. But guys, it's not even what she said that bothers me so much. Like, oh my God, she made an offensive remark about somebody on the other side of the aisle. Yeah, okay, welcome to 2025 politics. I try not to do that, but that is where we're at. It's the dishonesty and the total denial of accountability and the blatant lying for me. That's what grinds my gears. That's what's driving me a little bit insane about this story. But unfortunately, honestly, it's just par for the course for Jasmine Crockett. I think she's one of the worst representatives the Democratic Party has. I think she's wildly toxic and partisan and engages in politics at a very low IQ level in a very nasty and classless way with regularity. And the fact that Democrats are continuously elevating her to higher heights in their political party, I don't get it. Do they really think Jasmine Crockett's brand of progressive politics is ever going to win over independents and moderates? If y'all keep wanting to do that, just get used to losing, is all I'll say. Get used to taking enormous, giant L's with regularity, because that is what will happen if y'all really brand yourselves around this kind of toxic progressivism. But what do you guys think? Do you believe Jasmine Crockett was just referring to buses? Or can you, like me, see through that smokescreen? Let me know in the comments. I do take the time to read the comments. Love hearing what you guys have to say. Do hit that like button while you're at it, and make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Okay. Up next, we're going to talk about a big scandal that's embroiling the Trump team right now over what's being called Signal Gate. Basically, this big brouhaha over a scandal where a top Trump official, so led by National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, he created a group chat on Signal, which is a private messaging app that is encrypted. It's used by journalists often because it's pretty secure as far as civilian stuff is concerned. He created a chat on there with other top cabinet and Trump officials, like, for example, Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and other very important people that they then used to discuss plans for ongoing strikes, or at that time, upcoming strikes, U.S. strikes in Yemen against the Houthis. But the problem, the scandal happened because Mike Waltz accidentally added a random phone number to the group chat from his contacts, which happened to be Jeffrey Goldberg, a journalist and editor of The Atlantic. They then sent highly sensitive information, potentially legally classified information, about the upcoming attack to this clearly unsecure group chat on Signal, exposing it to that random journalist who was in there. To me, it should be pretty obvious to admit, like, wow, that's a big mess up. That's a pretty big mistake, and people should be held accountable for it. But instead, a lot of hyper-partisan conservative media personalities, and specifically some Fox News hosts, are twisting themselves into pretzels to defend the indefensible. I mean, guys, ask yourself, how would conservative media react if the same thing had happened under a Democratic administration? If, for example, a group chat with Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, and Lloyd Austin, the African-American Pentagon Secretary under Biden, if they had done this with some journalist and just accidentally exposed pretty sensitive details about the exact timing of upcoming U.S. military strikes, I have a feeling that conservative media would be screaming bloody murder. And frankly, I'd be agreeing with them because it's a big mistake. But the same way they made a huge deal, and rightly so, out of Hillary Clinton sharing classified information on her email server and all these other scandals, they would be up in arms. But because it's the Trump administration that did this, they are not exactly up in arms this time around. Take a listen to how Fox News star Jesse Waters described the scandal on his show.
Did you ever try to start a group text? You're adding people and you accidentally add the wrong person. All of a sudden, your Aunt Mary knows all your raunchy plans for the bachelor party. Well, that kind of happened today with the Trump administration. Mike Waltz was putting together a group chat on Signal, an encrypted app, with the Secretary of Defense, the VP, and a bunch of other national security officials to collaborate on whether to strike Iranian proxies in Yemen who keep firing missiles and shutting down shipping. Well, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz accidentally added a reporter to the group text, and not a good reporter. Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic, one of the biggest hoax artists around. Well, he heard some things he probably shouldn't have, but could have been a wee bit of a security breach. But it's not like they homebrewed a server and then bleached it or kept classified documents in their garages next to their Corvette. I'm sure it won't happen again.
You've got to be kidding me. Would Jesse Waters or other Fox News hosts really be saying, we've all texted the wrong person, or it's just a wee bit of a security mishap if a Democrat had done this? Give me a break. We all know he'd be singing from a very different hymn sheet. He would not be letting them off with a, oh, I'm sure they won't let it happen again. And we all know it. Sean Hannity attempted to similarly spin this story on his show on Fox. Take a listen.
Obsessed with an accidentally leaked text, a chain from Trump cabinet officials who are debating the merits of military strikes in Yemen. So the very people that covered up their president's severe cognitive decline, lied about wide open borders, both of which are clear and present dangers to our country, now want you to believe that they actually give a damn and care about national security. More feigned, phony outrage. This is now the scandal of the week that you will see nonstop, 24/7, that nobody will care about. Now, by the way, it's not only a smear, but it's waged by the left. That's all they've got.
Sorry, not sorry, but I don't think Sean Hannity would be describing this all as a media smear if a Democrat had done the exact same thing. And guys, notice the consistent theme here of whataboutism. As a defense of what the Trump team did wrong here, simply bringing up other bad things Democrats have done in the past. Y'all do know that's not a defense of your own actions, right? Just because some people may have done something worse or gotten away with something similar doesn't mean you didn't do anything wrong if you also do something similar. That's not how morality or ethics works. It is absolutely true that Biden had multiple massive scandals or acts of incompetence, like the disastrous way he botched the withdrawal from Afghanistan that got U.S. service members killed. But bringing that kind of thing up, or other failures of Democrats or other mistakes Democrats have made when your side is under scrutiny, is just whataboutism. It offers no actual defense of what your side did. I mean, imagine you're taken to court for a crime you committed, burglary, for example, and you say, well, what about that guy that murdered someone? Sir, you're still going to jail. You still messed up, and you should still be held accountable. Or even pointing out, look, that guy murdered someone and got away with it. Doesn't mean we should let you off the hook. That's not how logic works. That's why whataboutism is considered a logical fallacy, guys. It's just undeniable that the way that conservative media is spinning this story is rife with partisan hypocrisy and tribalism. It's Team Red doing it, so they're going to defend it, but if it was Team Blue, they'd be doing the opposite, and frankly, vice versa. Many of the mainstream media hosts who are slamming the Trump team for what they did here played down when Biden had his own classified information scandal, and vice versa. This is why mainstream media is just partisan slop, by and large, with some exceptions. There are some good individuals on either side, but it's just ultimately about what tribe you're a part of. They're not giving you independent truth-telling or honestly calling balls and strikes, at least not most of them. My take on this is pretty simple. You cannot run an administration where you are saying you are all about merit and you are ending DEI and then massively mess up and get away with it and not be punished. Let's be so for real. We all know that if Lloyd Austin, Biden's black Pentagon secretary, had done the same thing, many of the conservatives currently defending Pete Hegseth would have called him a DEI hire and demanded he be fired. And honestly, I might have agreed with them, at least about the being fired part, but now those same people are defending Hegseth. But the main person who should be held accountable here is Mike Waltz. You should not be able to mess up this badly and stay the national security advisor to the President of the United States, especially because, and this is what really bothers me, he's not taking accountability for this mistake. Instead, he's spreading bizarre conspiracy theories like maybe this journalist hacked his way into the chat. They released screenshots that showed Mike literally just added him to the chat. So he's not even fully taking accountability, apologizing for his mistake, promising to do better. He's deflecting and suggesting wild theories as to why he's not at fault. To me, that's inexcusable, and he's got to go. He should resign or be fired. Pete Hegseth, for me, it depends on whether what Hegseth sent in the group chat was classified information or not. If your defense secretary was sending classified information to a group chat with an unknown phone number on a platform you're not supposed to be sharing classified information, yeah, I mean, that's a huge mess up, and he should probably resign at that point. If this information is ultimately deemed to not have been classified, maybe it's the kind of thing he can recover from. But again, this is the guy, and I agree with him on this, who has said all about merit, who has fired people as DEI hires and shepherded them out the door. You can't do that and then mess up badly and just get away scot-free. At least not without looking like a huge hypocrite. And that's part of this problem, is they are firing tons of federal government employees, which to some extent I support downsizing a lot of these departments, but some of them are being fired without having done anything actually wrong. Their jobs are just being eliminated, or a quirk of the status that they hold as government employees is being used to fire them. And then you're going to have top officials mess up like this and not be fired. The double standard there is glaring. And I'm not going to defend that. I'm not going to twist myself in pretzels to say, oh, well, if you squint at it really hard, it's not that bad. Or Democrats have done worse stuff. No, it's bad. It's a mistake. And they should just own up to it and apologize and move on. And if they're not willing to do that, there should be some real consequences and accountability. And anybody in right of center media who's trying to spin this into a nothing burger, ask yourself, honestly, if the parties and the politics of who did what here was switched, would they be saying the same thing? I think we all know the answer. But what do you think? Are you upset about this scandal? Do you just not care at all? Do you see the media coverage as partisan, or do you actually think there's something here that's different? Do let me know in the comments. I want to hear from all of you guys, especially if you've served in the military or have some insight into the handling of classified information. I definitely want to hear from you. Okay, guys, up next, we'll run through some quick hits before we wrap up today's show. And up first, this woke journalist thinks the U.S. would lose a war with Canada. Take a listen to what now fired MSNBC host Joy Reid had to say.
Grampy Trump, let's talk. First of all, you can't make Canada the 51st state without going to war with them. And let me explain how that happened, how that worked out the last time we tried to go to war with Canada. They burned the White House to the ground in 1814 and won the war. Canada beat us in the War of 1812. They probably like their chances against us. We're not going to beat them in a war because we have never been able to do that. You'd have to occupy a country that is equivalent of the size of the United States, in which the top 2/3 of it is uninhabited, frozen forest land that touches the Arctic. You know how that worked out when the Nazis tried that with Russia, which is the equivalent of Canada on that part of the world? We gonna lose. We don't have enough troops to occupy. They are a country of 39 million people who have about as many guns per capita as we do.
Y'all, this woman was until very recently paid millions of dollars to be a professional political analyst. And look, of course, I don't think we should be making Canada the 51st state. I don't think we should be invading it, anything like that. But to suggest we couldn't beat Canada in a war, the United States military could not overcome Canada, is ridiculous. Y'all know how many nuclear weapons Canada has? 0. You know how many nuclear weapons the U.S. military has? Do you know how much money the U.S. spends on its military compared to how much Canada spends? Like, there's a massive gap in our military capabilities, and anybody who covers politics or foreign policy at all should know that, especially somebody who did it for so many years. And bringing up the War of 1812 is just like irrelevant. It's not 1812, babe. It's 2025, and a few things are different now than then. Joy Reid is just the gift that keeps on giving when it comes to loony left-wing journalists saying the most nonsensical things imaginable, and I'm just shocked as to why MSNBC possibly chose to stop paying millions of dollars, presumably every year or every couple of years, for this profound level of political wisdom. Up next, this woke TikTok influencer is calling for more violence and more vandalism. Yes, seriously, take a listen.
The alternative is rioting. It's vandalism. It's breaking things. If you're like, oh no, well, you talked about Bernie and AOC as controlled opposition, but like, what's the alternative? The alternative is vandalism and rioting and like destroying property. Every single person that has vandalized a Tesla has done more politically than your vote ever has. Like, you need to know that. You need to know that you going and breaking a Tesla's window is more politically effective than like Bernie's rhetoric on like his like tour of all these stadiums. Progressives, the left, like they have never won any of the rights, the civil rights or the changes that we want in the ballot box. We have done that by literally rioting. by literally burning things. So that's the alternative.
So this dude is sort of correct, but in the opposite direction of the direction he thinks that he's right in. It is true that vandalism and riots and this kind of thing is politically influential, but not in making people like your cause more, in sabotaging support for your cause and making your side look crazy and unhinged. You don't have to take my word for it. There's ample research that violent and destructive protests are harmful to a cause, not beneficial to it. So the idea that progressives are best served by burning or sabotaging random neighbors' cars rather than political organizing like Bernie or AOC is delulu to the nth degree. And we have a recent example of this. I mean, you look at the Black Lives Matter protests turned riots in 2020. At the start, I think most people were pretty horrified about the way George Floyd was treated, and there was a widespread public support, increase in support for police reform. But then the peaceful protests turned into deadly and violent riots that did billions of dollars of destruction and property damage and left dozens of people dead as a result. And you can see it in the public polling that the support plummeted once things took that turn, once it got violent, once the vandals got going, once people started getting hurt, the American public stopped supporting that cause as much. And there was a huge decrease in the polling. This is just like basic public policy, politics 101. But prominent TikTok commentators just don't get it and are giving their own side terrible advice. Not that that's particularly surprising. Up next, some right-wing snowflakes are mad about free speech that hurts their feelings. The context here is that the nonpartisan Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, aka FIRE, which, disclaimer, I do some consulting work with, sued on behalf of a LGBT student group under the Texas A&M public university system that wanted to have a drag-themed event, so featuring cross-dressing, but the university administrators of this public taxpayer-funded college system blocked them and told them they couldn't because it was offensive to women in their opinion. They sued with the help of FIRE, and a district court just ruled that public colleges are bound by the First Amendment and they can't block students from having events just because it offends some people or hurts their feelings. Now, you would think that even if you personally find drag offensive or you disagree with it, you would still, if you're a free speech supporter, agree with the students that they have the right to do this, and we don't want campus administrators having the power to just block campus events that offend people. Newsflash, that's not going to work out well for conservative viewpoints. But instead, some prominent right-wing influencers are attacking the judge and even FIRE because of this outcome. The Libs of TikTok account tweeted, U.S. District Judge Lee Rosenthal just ruled that Texas A&M must allow a drag show to take place. Judges are now forcing queer theory and sexually explicit shows to take place at universities. So, sorry, Libs of TikTok, that you don't like free speech or the First Amendment. But this judge, who, by the way, I believe was appointed by Bush, not a Obama, Biden, Marxist judge or whatever, isn't the one forcing viewpoint neutrality on public schools. The First Amendment does that. And the same rights that protect this LGBT student group's right to have an adult-only drag show, a private event, it's not being forced on anyone, also protect your right to have a gender-critical book club or a Christian Bible study group on campus that teaches that homosexuality is wrong, or invites speakers that are offensive to other groups. Like, do y'all not see how this has to go both ways, or you're just a hypocrite and you are undermining the rights you say you support? And that until very recently, the right branded itself around. I, for one, am an actual consistent supporter of free speech and the First Amendment, regardless of whether I personally like the ideas or activity being protected, because it's the principle that matters. Too many right-wing influencers who cut their teeth as free speech warriors as part of this culture war seem pretty selective about when they actually stand up for those principles. That makes them not much better than woke activists who also only support free speech when it's the speech they like. Well, what do you guys think? Do you agree with me, or do you agree with the Libs of TikTok account? Do let me know in the comments, do hit that like button, and do make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. All right, guys, that's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for joining me. It's great to be back doing this show today. I missed you guys on my vacation. Thanks again to Lumen for sponsoring today's episode, and we will talk again real soon.